It all started on what should have been a normal morning. My daughter, who uses a wheelchair, was waiting near the front of our home for her school van, backpack on her lap and a smile on her face. She's been through a lot, but she's one of the strongest people I know. What happened next, though, left both of us stunned, and it started with a woman we now call the HOA Karen. She's the type who thinks her clipboard gives her power, and this time, she decided my daughter's backpack didn't look appropriate for the neighborhood. Yes, you heard that right, my disabled child's backpack. Without warning, she marched up, said something about community standards, and before I could react, she ripped it right off my daughter's lap. The shock on my daughter's face broke me, and that's when something in me shifted. See, what Karen didn't know is that I've spent the last 12 years advising the U.S. Department of Justice on disability rights and civil liberties. I don't flex it, but I know how the law works, and I know how to stand up when people cross the line. But this wasn't just about legal rights. This was about human decency, about a line that should never be crossed, and the people who think they're above consequence. What came next? Let's just say, Karen had no idea the storm she had just stepped into, and it wasn't the kind she could write a complaint about. To understand how we got here, you need to know a little more about our neighborhood and this woman. Our HOA is the kind that's supposed to keep the place neat and organized, but lately it's felt more like a playground for people with too much time and too little empathy. Karen, as we've come to know her, is always patrolling the sidewalks with a clipboard in one hand and her phone ready in the other. She sends emails about overgrown bushes, garbage cans placed 6 inches off, and now apparently backpacks. My daughter has special needs, both physically and neurologically, and she uses a custom backpack designed to carry her medical supplies and school materials. It's not flashy or anything, just practical, but that didn't seem to matter to Karen. She claimed it was unsightly and didn't match the community aesthetic. I still can't believe those words came out of someone's mouth about a child's school bag. And when I tried to calmly explain the situation, she doubled down, saying we were violating HOA guidelines. She even said she'd bring it up at the next board meeting. Like that was supposed to scare me. What Karen didn't realize is that I've dealt with far tougher rooms than an HOA meeting. I've sat across from federal officials debating real civil rights policies. But this wasn't about politics. This was personal. She crossed a line, and while she thought she was enforcing rules, she was about to get a lesson in compassion, law, and consequences. As the days passed, the tension between Karen and me grew. The first email she sent was calm, almost polite, reminding me of HOA regulations and encouraging me to correct my daughter's backpack choice. I didn't respond immediately, mostly because I knew this wasn't a simple misunderstanding. This was about something bigger. Karen had made it clear she didn't respect our family, and that's when I decided to fight back, not just for my daughter's dignity, but for every family in our neighborhood who might be next. I could already sense the whispers. People had started looking at me differently. Nervous glances, the kind you get when someone's been gossiping about you behind your back. Some were on Karen's side, citing the same rules she did, while others seemed hesitant but didn't dare speak up. The HOA board was divided too, though no one had outright agreed with Karen. Still, I could tell her influence ran deep. And the more I thought about it, the more it irritated me. This wasn't about rules. It was about control, power, and the kind of person who hides behind rules to justify their cruelty. Then came the knock on my door. It wasn't Karen this time. It was one of the board members, Tom. He came with a copy of the HOA's newly updated guidelines and suggested that we meet in person to discuss this whole situation. I didn't need to meet in person. I already knew what he was going to say, that I should just comply, let it go, and avoid making waves. But something in his eyes told me this wasn't just about the backpack anymore. There was fear behind his words, fear of Karen. I didn't let it go. The more I pushed, the more Karen dug in her heels, getting nastier with her demands. She started sending me photos of my daughter's backpack, claiming it was damaging property values and urging the board to take action. The emails were full of passive-aggressive comments and veiled threats about what would happen if I didn't comply. That's when I realized this wasn't just a personal vendetta against my family, it was part of a bigger problem. One evening, as I was sitting down to respond to her latest email, I got a call from an unexpected source. One of my old colleagues at the Justice Department. She had heard about the situation from a mutual friend and asked if I needed help. I didn't want to drag the department into this. It was supposed to be a private matter. But after all the threats and hostility, I knew I needed backup. It wasn't just about standing up for my daughter anymore. It was about taking a stand against a community that had allowed someone like Karen to have so much power. The phone call left me with a hard decision: fight this quietly, or go public with the story. Either way, Karen wasn't going to back down, and the clock was ticking. I could feel the weight of the choice pressing on me. What would happen to my family if I pushed too hard? Would I end up making things worse, or would I get the justice we all deserved? The more I thought about it, the more I realized this wasn't just about Karen anymore. This was about standing up to a system that had allowed her to thrive. It wasn't just her. It was every person in that HOA who looked the other way, every neighbor who silently agreed with her. And that made me angrier than I'd ever been before. The days grew longer, and the pressure started to feel like it was crushing me. Every time I thought I could finally relax, the emails from Karen would pop up again, more demanding, more condescending. She had even gone as far as to send a letter to the HOA board, formally requesting that my daughter's backpack be removed from the neighborhood. And the worst part, I could see it working. The board members were beginning to waver, swayed by Karen's persuasive arguments and the fear of backlash from the community. It was as if they were too scared to do what was right, too wrapped up in her control. I found myself at a crossroads. Every day, it felt like I was living in a pressure cooker, and I knew I had to make a choice: stand up publicly or back down. The idea of backing down felt like a betrayal to my daughter, and I couldn't live with that. But the fear of what might come next was overwhelming. What if Karen escalated things? What if the board decided to take action? I could already hear the whispers of neighbors ready to turn against us. One afternoon, things took a turn. The HOA had called a special meeting to discuss the issue, and I knew it would be the turning point. Karen had been rallying her supporters, gathering people to vote for the removal of my daughter's backpack, and it was clear that her influence was growing. I could feel the weight of that meeting on my shoulders, knowing that it would decide whether we would be forced out or whether we would stand tall and fight. That night, I barely slept, my mind racing with the possible outcomes. I kept replaying every conversation with Karen, every moment I had spent trying to reason with her, trying to show her the simple decency she was clearly lacking. But it had all been in vain. Now it was no longer about a backpack. It was about standing up for my daughter, for every person who had ever been silenced by people like Karen, who used their position to bully others. The morning of the meeting, I could feel the tension in the air. I arrived early, knowing Karen would be there with her entourage, ready to manipulate the situation in her favor. My heart was pounding in my chest as I walked into the room, the stares from the board members and neighbors who had shown up only adding to the weight on my shoulders. I was prepared for anything, but nothing could have prepared me for what happened next. As the meeting began, the first few moments were calm, but it didn't take long for Karen to start making her case. She spoke with a kind of certainty that only someone used to getting their way could muster. Her words were sharp, her tone condescending, and she painted a picture of my daughter's backpack as a blight on the neighborhood. As she spoke, I could feel the temperature in the room drop, the air thick with tension. But then something unexpected happened. One of the board members, Tom, the same one who had come to my door, stood up. He hesitated for a moment, then spoke. His voice was shaking, but there was something in his words that caught everyone off guard. I've seen how this family has been treated, and frankly, I don't think we can ignore the fact that this isn't just about a backpack anymore. This is about what kind of community we want to be. The room went quiet. It was as if everyone was holding their breath, waiting for Karen's response. But Karen didn't back down. Instead, she lashed out, her eyes filled with fury as she pointed a finger at Tom. "You're making a mistake, Tom. You're letting emotion cloud your judgment," she snapped. "This is about rules, about what's best for the neighborhood." But the damage had already been done. A crack had appeared in Karen's iron grip, and I could see the hesitation in the eyes of the board members, the shift in the atmosphere. The tension was palpable, and I knew it was only a matter of time before the storm would break. What would happen next? Would the board finally stand up to Karen, or would they buckle under pressure and give in to her manipulation? My heart raced as I waited for the answer, the air thick with the weight of the decision that would change everything. Just as it seemed like the room was beginning to turn in our favor, an unexpected voice interrupted the moment. It was Karen's husband, Steve. He had been sitting quietly in the back, his arms crossed, but now he stood up, his face red with anger. "This is ridiculous," he shouted, his voice carrying across the room. "You're letting this woman turn this neighborhood upside down over a stupid backpack." The room went silent. No one had expected this turn. Steve had always been the quieter one, the one who stood in Karen's shadow, never making waves. But now he was raising the stakes in a way that no one had anticipated. "You think this is about a backpack?" Steve continued, pacing in front of the room. "This is about her ignoring the rules. There's always been a standard in this neighborhood, and now she's breaking it. And you're letting her get away with it because she's crying about her disabled child." His words hit like a slap, venomous and filled with resentment. I could feel my blood pressure rising. The tone of the room had shifted from uneasy to hostile. Neighbors who had previously stayed silent now exchanged nervous glances, and some of them even looked uncomfortable, as though they were caught between sides. But Steve wasn't finished. "She's been flaunting her connections, acting like she's untouchable," Steve spat. "I know what's going on behind the scenes. We all know it. She's trying to use her position to manipulate things, and I won't stand for it."